Anything else?
Okay.
Okay. Let's begin with what is your name and where and when were you born?
My name's Kenneth Farris. I was born in Pernell, Oklahoma, July the 16th, 1923.
Uh-huh. And what was your early schooling like? What was school like in the beginning?
What it was like?
Yeah.
Well, you know, we walked to school a little over, one time we had to walk about a mile and a half, and my father worked in the oil field, and he moved not out of the state or county, just a few miles. Well, that put me in another school, and we walked about a little over a mile there.
Did you get through high school?
Went through high school.
Uh-huh.
Through,
Okay.
yeah, same school, and I started in this little country school, and of course I went through high school at Pernell, Oklahoma, where
Right.
I told you I was born. You
Okay.
know.
Now, when you were about 18 years old, something pretty big happened. Can you tell me how you heard about and what your reaction was to Pearl Harbor?
Well, yeah, I can remember Pearl Harbor being bombed, and I can remember President Roosevelt making his speech. You know.
Did you have a radio that you were able to listen to?
No, radio.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
No, of course, back then it wasn't television.
No, not at all.
And I can remember him making his talk, and I can remember reading the paper of these two Japanese ambassadors or whoever was over here, you know, and they were still here when they was bombing Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And
What was
so
your
that
reaction?
was,
What was your reaction to it, though? I mean, do you remember?
well, I think I was just like everyone else, is disappointed, you know, and upset, and couldn't stand the name of a Japanese, you know, and I'm sure I was just one of the millions that
Sure.
felt that same way.
Sure. Well, here you are. You're 18 years old. Okay. Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor. Call to arms. All the young people are supposed to join up. What happened in your case?
My case?
Yeah.
What do you mean in
Well,
my case?
You're 18 years old.
Yeah.
You're eligible to go into the military.
Right.
And
Right.
all around you are kids either
They-
joining or getting drafted. Or
Yeah.
What happened to you?
Well, when I got out of high school, the summer I got out of high school in 1942, our history teacher was a government inspector on an air base in Texas, and he got 6 of us boys that graduated that year jobs on the air base. I think 35, 40 cents an hour, best I can remember. It wasn't much, and but anyway, we went. 6 of us loaded in one of the boys had a model, and we drove this air base. We left home at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were still driving at 3 o'clock the next afternoon. Then go 200 miles. But and then we worked on this air base, and
So this was this part of a war effort?
that was part of the war effort.
So you
That's
were
when they were
considered-
building bases everywhere, you
Okay.
know. And this was part of, like you said, part of the war effort.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in effect, you were deferred. They were not looking for you to draft you because you were already working on something.
Well, I wasn't in the draft at that time.
Okay.
I was in the draft in 42,
Okay.
40, later part of 42.
Okay.
And well, in fact, I was in the draft when we were working on that base, but didn't call me up till the following January. And this was in the spring and summer, or summer rather, more or less, in 42.
Okay.
And
So how did you hear about getting into the military? Did you get a letter or get a telegram?
got a letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want you or something. Everybody said, you know. But and it didn't bother me so much. But my dad, I was the baby of the family. It's 5 of us kids, 2 boys and 3 boys and 2 girls. And of course they were married. My brothers and sisters, they were married, and I was still home. And I'll never forget when I was drafted. Well, went to they had to take me to Paul Valley, which was 25 miles, and then on a bus to Oklahoma City and take the physical, and of course immediately you passed the physical, and got back and had 7 days to get ready to leave. Well, it wasn't bothering me too much. It was a little, being young, and I hated to leave home, but it like killed my mother and dad. It just done him in, and he didn't live. I went in January, latter part of January '43, and he died in April. And I always thought it was probably one reason his health went bad all at once was on account of me, the baby, leaving home, getting,
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, he came to Fort Sill and seen me. My mother did too. And wasn't there but about 10 days, something like that, best I can remember. Well, we left there and rode a train to Miami, Florida. And we was on the train, troop train, probably 7 to 8 days. And taking our basic training.
Now, did you have still civilian clothes on when you left when you were on the train?
No.
They'd already
we went
given
to Fort
you.
Sill. We went to Fort Sill and we had civilian clothes on.
Okay.
But immediately we got there.
Okay.
We got there one night.
Yeah.
Next morning they was throwing them clothes at us,
Yeah. They didn't have a New York tailor there to measure you?
No. I'll guarantee you, some of them would fit and some of them wouldn't fit, and they didn't care. Just put them on, And I'll never forget of course, they give me all kinds of shots, I guess every kind of shot that, And,
Was that in those guns?
No,
They
it
just
wasn't
stick
no
it
guns.
in? Oh.
And you go through, I'll never forget, it was in the building, was in all lined up, and single file, and as you walk through this one door, it's on each side. They got you.
Just like an assembly line. Just
boom, yeah,
oh.
get to moving. And I'll guarantee you, it was all worms. Anyway, we walked out of the this barrack and trying to put our shirts on, Well, first guy we met was a little second lieutenant. We couldn't even, our arms was hurting so bad we couldn't raise them. Well, he stopped and ate our rear out because we didn't salute him, But anyway, we were there. We spent 7 days, best I can remember, in Fort Sill.
Now, was this a gathering of people from all over the country?
All over the country. Mostly Oklahoma, I'm sure,
Yeah.
It's being drafted.
Okay.
And I know when we went in, left the county seat, which was Paul Valley, where we had the restaurant and all. Well, it was a busload of us. It was.
How have you traveled very far before that time?
No.
Okay. So
Well, once a couple summers, I worked in Illinois. My brother ran a service station for a guy up there, and I worked in the service station a couple summers while I was out of school, in the summertime.
Yeah.
But that's the furthest I've ever been away from
Okay.
home.
So you're on a busload of these guys. Where'd you go from there?
Well, we went. My father and mother had to take me to Paul Valley, of course, and we got the county seat, and that's where we got on the bus. And back then, very few roads were paved, And we left Paul Valley one afternoon, 2 or 3 o'clock, and we was all rest of the day and all night getting to Fort Sill. Muddy roads, muddy, and we got in Fort Sill the next morning, 3 or 4 o'clock. Well, we didn't even. We went to a barrack, but we didn't even get to go to bed. They was in there getting us out of there and going, taking not calisthenics, but going through medical, getting shots and.
Was Fort Sill a big place or a small?
Fort
It was
Sill
big.
It's a military base. It's,
Okay.
One of the larger. It's infantry.
Okay. Training area.
Training
yeah.
area. Big now. It's still operating.
So you have barracks. You have a marching area. You got a big flag somewhere up there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And back then, you didn't know how to march. You just it's trained us
Yeah,
all this time,
sure.
you know.
Yeah.
And you get out of step, well, man, oh man, to be a sergeant just on you right quick, you know. But
Well, yeah.
anyway, we was there about 7 days, best I can remember.
Okay.
And we got on a troop train and went to Florida.
Okay.
And it's taken us 7 days, taking us a week exactly to go down
Yeah.
there. And I was 12 weeks in Florida, basic training.
Okay.
And I'll never forget that. We were in a hotel right on the beach. Of course, we had blackout, you know. And then the first morning, we had to march drill field like 2 miles. Well, they had so many rifles, and well, of course, I always liked guns, and I was the first one up there to get me a gun, you know. And but after I learned after that day, of being carrying that gun 2 mile, wore out, slept, and next morning or the next morning, then the tail end. I wasn't about to volunteer for. I wasn't about to volunteer for a gun.
I got a couple questions for you. During this very early period, what was the daily routine like? You know, you get up in the morning. What did you do?
We'll go to drill field.
Right, but I mean, you wake up in the morning about what time? About maybe.
Oh, they'd come in and get you. It was in the wintertime, and it's and on the East Coast, and I'm sure we were up way before daylight. I can remember that.
Okay.
And you had to clean your room.
Yep.
And make your bed, and then you'd get to go to chow, what you call chow, you know, and you'd eat and you come back, and they give you so long, then maybe to go back up your room and go to the restroom, and you get back down on the street, and get ready to march it, and they marched you to the field. I said 2 mile. It was close to 1.5 miles, I'm sure, best I can remember. And you marched there every morning, and you're going through all these drills. And you march back at lunch. You march back in the afternoon after lunch, and you march back in the evening. By the time you got back, you was wore out, you know, and you was wanting to go to bed quick, you know. And and then being away from home that far, you know, and you're homesick, and you don't like the Army, you don't like nothing about it, and of course you can't, you don't dare act like you're homesick or anything, and it really put it to you, you know.
Well, amongst the group there, were there people from all over the country?
All over.
Well,
over
now
everywhere.
you may not notice it, but you have a distinct accent.
Well,
did that stick out with these guys?
Oh, I'm sure it did. You know, some of the guys from the deep south, you know, had more of an accent than I've got, you know.
Yeah.
And anyway,
so there was a little razzing back and forth. Was there that kind of, you know, where are you from? I'm from New York.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Okay.
And you met some good friends.
Yeah.
Very good, close friends.
Yeah.
I did down there. Well, anyway, left there after basic training, and like say 6 weeks, and we got on a troop train and went to Salt Lake City. Well, that's where I was telling you guys at lunch, where the guy take the measles, got the measles on the train, not on our car. I imagine there's 15, 16, 17 cars in this troop train, you know. And of course we had one car was a cook car. It wasn't a diner, you know. And you one car get to go through and take the mess kit and go through and get your food, and you go back to your car and eat, you know. And they were sleeper cars. But anyway, we were there like 7 days getting there, and all the boys that I take basic training with were real close. I got real close to some of them, you know. And so, like I was saying before, that my father died, and
well, tell that. I mean, I realize it's a painful memory, but you told us about. How did you find out, and then what was the process of being able to
when my father
when
died,
your father died? Yeah.
Well, it came through the Red Cross.
Okay.
They went to the Red Cross. My mother did, and my sister and brothers, you know, whoever. They went to the Red Cross, and that's how I was notified that he had died. And they came in and finally found me. Of course, we were way off down barracks by ourselves, you know. And time I got my clothes out of this, well, I had to go into a general or colonel, I can't think now, but I can remember going into his office. And he's asking me all kinds of questions, you know, because he was having a doubt, maybe, that my father even died, because he, you know, young like that, and you're homesick, and you think that maybe your parents trying to get you home, you know. And but anyway, the Red Cross got involved in it, and anyway, I got the emergency furlough, and the Red Cross take me to train station there in Salt Lake, and gave me $40. Bought my train ticket, round trip train ticket to Paul Valley, and give me $40 besides that. And I'll never forget it. It was going back then. You had more silver dollars in Nevada and Salt Lake, in Utah through there, than they had dollar bills. And they was going to give me 40 silver dollars. And I said, mercy, I can't carry them things. I said, I'm going to be on a train for 3 days, you know, and rode from there to Denver, then changed trains there and finally, I think, went from Denver to Topeka, Kansas, changed again, and finally got home. It took me about 3 days. Mm-hmm. And anyway,
you got a chance to attend your father's funeral then?
Got in one day, and they was holding the funeral up for me to get home. I had another brother, older than I. Well, it was like a thing. It was 5 of us kids, 3 boys and 2 girls. Well, we had the oldest was a girl. The next 2 oldest were boys, and then a girl, and then me. I was the baby of the bunch. And but I got in on the train to Paul Valley one day, and the funeral wasn't the next day, but it was the next day. Well, I had to turn right around the next day and get on the train and go back to Salt Lake. And you know, and it's sad. Really hate to leave my mother, you know. But anyway, that was in April. Then in July, well, I was in Scottsbluff, Nebraska at this time, and we went from Salt Lake. The boys that I was taking basic training with, by the time I got back, they were already shipped out, and they had gone to South Pacific. I'd found out, or the Pacific, and I got with another group. Of course, didn't know us, so you know. But anyway, that's when I went to Scottsbluff, Nebraska. From there, well, I went to Wendover, Utah. And from Wendover, I wasn't in Wendover just 2 or 3 days. Went to Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and I was there for about 10 months. And
what were you doing there?
Taking training on B-17s.
Oh, okay.
And
but what kind of training were you doing though for the B-17?
Well, I was in ordnance, and I was at that time I was loading ammunition.
Ammunition.
You know.
Okay. Yeah, ordnance
But
being the.
Then I got busted.
Busted?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, eventually made corporal.
Yeah, but how did you get busted?
Well, going AWOL.
Oh, really? Come on. What happened? What happened?
I just I got a furlough and went home.
Yeah.
And I was just about 6, 7 days late going back.
Oh.
And they didn't like that.
Yeah.
And so they busted me and put me back in transportation then. And
so you went from ordnance to transportation as a punishment. Yeah.
And so that's what I did, even when I went overseas then.
Yeah. Well, what was involved in transportation? What does that mean? What were you doing?
I was hauling mostly crews to the flightline
Okay.
to their planes, you know.
So the crew's ready to get on a B-17. You
Well,
load them
back
up.
now, this 17th when we was in Scottsbluff, Nebraska.
Okay. What about?
When they then when I left there and went to forming 461st Bomb Group in Hammerfield, California, Fresno.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where I was shipped there, the whole group of us, you know, and that's where we're taking the rest of the training there.
I see.
And I'll tell you a story that happened to me while I was in Fresno. We had a plane to go down in a lake, a brand new one, and it was Huntington Lake, up in the mountains from San Francisco. Fresno.
Fresno.
And I was taking a load of supplies up there to this, you know, the military people were there, you know. I'll never forget that. By myself.
Mm-hmm.
I said I was lost, you know. Finally got there, and I don't remember now how I ever got back there and back, but I did. And but anyway, that was the starting of the 461st with me, you know. And I was one of the first ones in, you know. I won't say the first, but one of the, you know, the first ones in the 461st.
Wow. You know, it's interesting that if things had turned out differently, you would have been in the Pacific, right? You would have
I've been in the Pacific with
Yeah.
the first group. If
Yeah.
if my father, you know, hadn't
Yeah.
died, well, at that time, well,
Yeah.
Probably 10 days later, I'd been gone, and I wouldn't have got to come by. You know,
Yeah.
I'd have been going away Pacific, and
Sure.
I wouldn't got to make, you know, be home.
What were the early days of the 461st like? What was it like being there in Fresno?
Well, you know, I can't remember just how long we were. Like September.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed like to me as September, early October, that went from Scottsbluff, Nebraska to Fresno, to Hammerfield, and of course you're acquainted with so many other people coming in from other directions, you know. Because what people was in Scottsbluff, they wasn't the whole group, you know, and best I can remember that they were from everywhere, different bases, you know, that formed the 461st.
What was that camp like? The one where you were stationed in Fresno. What was that camp?
Okay. Well,
What did it look like?
yeah, I can't remember.
Okay.
Just
all right.
old tar paper barracks,
Okay,
you
all
know,
right.
that, and me and two of my buddies, and we had passes, you know, we could get leave the base and go back, you know, but we had a certain curfew that we had to make, you know. Well, me and two of my friends went to a football game. Collie Pacific was playing, I think now, whoever. So we had a bottle of slow gin, and 2 bottles maybe, and we drank that, and don't even remember how we got to, we did take a taxi back to the base, you know, and God, we got in deep trouble with that because we were late getting back, you know, and I don't remember now just how bad the trouble was, you know, or how deep it was, but anyway, I'll never, we sure got intoxicated on that slow gin. But anyway, we were there then till about 4th of January when we shipped out. And
Did you know where you were going? Did you know where you were going?
No.
Okay.
No, they didn't. They put us on a troop train and went to Virginia, down the road here just a little ways, and got on ship. And I know it was a night when we got on there, and we was carrying our big duffel bags and rifles, you know. And
Well, was this a troop ship or what was it?
It's troop ship.
Troop ship?
Troop
Right.
ship.
So it wasn't one of these luxury liners or anything?
No,
Yeah.
no. And even underneath had trucks and bombs, you know, and it was just a troop ship and Liberty ship, what they were
Okay,
called.
yeah, right.
And I know it was of a night when we got on there, and for 3 or 4 days we just out convoying around, you know, I mean, trying to get the convoys, I guess, and the best I can remember, seemed like in this convoy that when we went overseas, like nearly 800 ships, 700 and something ships. I mean, we got to see any direction you look, as far as you could see, it would be ships.
How did the ship affect your stomach? Were you okay?
Didn't bother me.
Really?
But,
All
no,
right.
really, I didn't get seasick.
Yeah.
Not one time. But I've seen guys that weighed 260 pounds and got over didn't weigh 160. Then I don't think they ate all the time. You know, if they did, they just throw it up. You know, because we got in some really rough weather.
Yeah.
And big seas was, you know, just go up and come down, you know, and rough. But then we were on a ship 47 days. Best I can remember, I think it's 46 or 47 days, and we were strafed. Our ship wasn't, but some of the convoy was, you know. And we went into Mediterranean, and that's where we got strafed for German planes or Italian. I don't know that, you know, which one.
Right.
And but anyway, we made it to Sicily, and we docked off the coast of Sicily for 7 days, and waiting on the harbor to clear in Naples. And we got in there. Finally got in there one night and unloaded, and they taken us to a bombed out college, and we were there nearly a week, 6 days.
Did you have any outside news, newspaper, radio?
Nothing,
No, what was
no,
going on? Nothing.
Nothing. They didn't tell you nothing. They didn't want you to know nothing. You know, nothing. We didn't have any idea where we was even going till we got to Naples. But anyway, we were in this college. Slept in this college for six nights, 7 nights, something like that.
Like a dormitory kind of thing? Or?
And the college had been bombed. There's not a window in it, you know, they're all bombed out. And slept on a marble floor, a blanket. No, that's it. And you get 2 meals a day. And on this ship, we got 2 meals a day. We got a breakfast and a lunch like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and later on 6, 7 o'clock at night we got a cookie or something, you know, a couple of free cookies. That was it. And didn't have no place on there where you go buy anything, you know, of course. And this ship was a Liberty ship, and they had so many Navy personnel on there to man the guns. Then they had crews on there to operate the ship. They were, God, I can't think now what they were called, but they made good money. And when they were what they call enemy waters, their pay just isolated, you know, escalated rather. And they were paid well. Merchant seamen.
Merchant seamen.
Merchant seamen.
Yeah. So you're in Italy now. You don't know what you're doing there or why you're there.
We were there in this college.
Okay.
Like six, 7 days.
Yeah.
And we got on a troop train and went to. We went to. Up in the
Naples?
I don't think, no. We were in Naples.
Yeah.
We were in Naples. That's where we got on the train.
Okay.
And I think we went to Potenza. No,
Okay.
it wasn't Potenza.
That's all right, but you ended up somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, and then got on trucks and went to our base there.
Okay, now where was the base?
Cerignola.
Okay.
At Cerignola.
Now, what was this base like?
It was they made camp. We made a camp out in a farmer's dairy.
Okay.
And that's where we had the barns, you know, had one of the barns was a mess hall, and one of the bars was a commissioned officers club, you know, and NCO club, you know, and
Where did you sleep?
We 6 of us boys slept in a tent.
Oh,
All the time we was over, 6 of
Yeah.
us boys together.
yeah.
And we were, there were 6 of us in a tent. They made the blocks, you know, like we have concrete blocks here.
Uh-huh.
They were cleachy blocks, and they dug them out of this quarry with picks. Picks was about so wide, and once they picked them out of there, they were perfect. They were so long and so square, but heavy. Well, we built the walls of our tent way out and take the flaps and where we could get 6 bunks in there. And we had a barrel in the middle of the tent for fire. And we had a barrel outside and the copper line running in it, you know, and we burned 100 octane gas in it. That's where we got our fuel from the planes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fuel trucks at the planes.
Yeah.
And that's what we burned for fuel.
Now, was that official? That was allowed, or is that something you jerry-rigged?
Pardon me?
Was that official? That was allowed that you could use that fuel?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
only time we could.
Oh, okay.
We didn't have nothing else. And our tents was in an olive grove. And of course we were there then all the time I was over there. That was like in January, February then. And I know when we got in there of a night, and we had to sleep on the ground for a week. In the wintertime, of course, we didn't have near as bad as the guys in the infantry, you know, slopping around in it and fighting in it, you know. We were just sleeping in it, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we did that. I think it was about a week before we got our tent. And then taking us a while, a few days to get the the blocks, you know, to build it up, you know. But anyway,
so how long were you there? How long were you there?
That was in February, maybe close to 1st of March, or in March rather, because we had 45 days on the plane.
Okay.
I mean on the ship.
Yeah.
And we left there then in the war was over 45 of June.
So this is where you stayed for most of the time.
All
you
the
were...
time.
Oh,
All the
okay.
time.
All right.
All
So
the
now
time.
this is home base.
Right there. I was there
Okay.
all the time.
In that
I was
tent.
In that tent.
Wow.
And like I said, it was 6 of us in there. And I had Muskogee, Oklahoma. If you knew anybody's Army serial number, you could write them and give them the serial number, their name and serial number, and they'd write you back and tell you whether they're still living or not. Well, I did that. I got the serial number on these other 5 guys, you know. Come to find out, me and one guy, the name was Roy Nash, and he lived in Clearwater, Florida. Only ones in our tent. The other 4 had died. And then Roy died 3 years ago. His wife called me, I think it's in May, 4 years ago maybe now, and he died. So
All
I'm
right.
the only one living of
Yeah.
the 6 that was
Wow.
in my tent.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So here you are now, in this tent. What was the 461st doing? This is where the staging area for the 461st. The bombers were leaving there.
In this squadron.
Okay.
The squadron, there's 4 squadrons for the
Okay.
bomb group, and we had a
Yep.
headquarters
Yep.
and then 4 squadrons.
Okay.
Well, all the squadrons is similar, you know. There's a mile or so apart, you know.
Okay. All right.
And of course, they used they had their plane, the 460, 66, 67th, you
Sure.
know, and the 64th. They had their
Yeah.
planes. We had our planes,
Okay.
you know. And I got to knowing a lot of the crews,
Okay.
real close, you know. And when they got shot down, well, you know, it hurt you know.
Well, we'll get to that, but let's get into the routine first. You're now settled in this tent. Okay. What is your daily routine in the very beginning when you first got there to this area?
Well, it was a while. Seemed like to me, I can't remember just how long before we got to first planes, you know.
Okay. All right.
For them to start run their missions, you know. And I can't remember just how long it was. Maybe in 3 weeks or a month.
But the planes finally arrived.
Finally arrived.
Okay.
And then we just have a routine of picking the crews up. And the gunners, they'd get on one, you know, we'd pick the whole crew up. You know, we had officers, the pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, and the navigator, and then all the gunners, you know, and the radio operator will, one truck could take them all to briefing at headquarters.
Okay.
And you sit there and wait on, you know, they get out of the briefing where they were going to go that day and what they expected, you know, to maybe being intercepted fighters, you know.
Right.
And we take them to the planes. And
but you yourself never were privy to what they were doing. You just dropped them off.
I knew what they were going through because I'd find out when they came back.
Back,
you know.
okay, yeah.
And like I said, you know, you call them the same bunch. They wouldn't fly every day.
Yeah.
Same crew, you know.
Yeah.
But and the missions. Some of the missions they went on, they get 2 missions for one. Because if there's more enemy, if there's what they considered more enemy territory, you know, or what, you know, they would get 2 missions for one. And they're supposed to fly, I think, 50 missions like that, and they get to come home.
Yeah.
And you know, you carry the same crews not day in, day out, but you got to know them real well.
Yeah.
And if they got shut down, that hurt you, you know.
Well, let's talk about that. The first mission that went out, was there? Do you remember if there was any casualties coming back in?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, what's
really.
the first one you remember? What's the first time you remember? And how did you find out that a certain airplane didn't come back?
Well,
or a certain crew?
you know how many planes went out of your squadron.
Okay.
You know, it's 5 or 6 or 7. You know,
right.
At least that many. And you knew what planes they were. You know, they all had names and they had the pictures drawn on them. You know, and
nose art.
And you knew all of them, and even the crews that worked on the planes, you got real close to them too, you know. And I did some flying. They'd put an engine on the plane, you know, or something like that, and then want to pre-flight it, you know. I'd go up nearly 2 or 3 times a week just for roundaways, you know. And
you'd fly an airplane?
Not flying it.
Yeah, right.
In there, right.
You'd be in there. Okay,
I just
okay.
And but I can tell you a story about a boy that died this May. I had a sister die the 9th of May, and he died about a week later. His name was O.C. Craig, Oral Craig, and 2 of the boys right now, Slim Mathis, he's from Minnesota, and then George Zobel from Florida. They were on his plane. And he was never a radio operator on it plane. And we were having a reunion in Rapid City, South Dakota. And we were at the officers' mess having lunch. Well, after lunch, we was out in the lobby, you know, and before we got on the bus to go down on the flight lines where the B-1B bombers were, you know. And anyway, well, I was talking to a gentleman there in this lobby, and these 2 guys, or 3 or 4 guys behind me, talking about this O.C. Craig, you know. And I said, that has to be the oral that I was raised with, see. And I turned around and I said, are you guys talking about O.C. Craig? It's Oral Craig from Craig, Oklahoma? Okemo, Oklahoma? And he said, yeah. I said, would you believe he and I was raised from babies on up? And I said, he lived with my parents, me and my parents, part of the last year in high school. Well, anyway, of course, we were together then. I mean, but they were. That was the story. Well, to find out about him being in our bomb group, but different squadron, I got a Christmas card from his mother, and she was wrote me a little note in there, you know, and said Oral is in Italy somewhere, and he may be close to you. Well, she gave me his address, and I think he was in the I was in the 765th, and I think he was in the 66, something like that. Well, I went over and seen him, you know. Of course, we were together then. Then I imagine for a month, 5 weeks, and of course I knew when he flew, you know, and the plane, and I was down there to make sure he, you know, catch their plane when they came in too. One time it did come in, and it waited and I waited and I waited, and it finally came in. Well, he wasn't on it, and they had bombed, went on a mission over Yugoslavia. And one piece of flak hit that plane, and his radio operator and caught his right arm, right here in the muscle, and just tore it off. And this little piece of hide holding it, when this come back over the Adriatic, he had them cut that little piece of hide out and throw it out the window. So anyway, that's when they got back that evening. They told me what had happened, you know. Well, next morning, I went up to this hospital in Foggia, not Foggia, but Foggia. And to see him, well, of course, he's taking it better than I was. And he was just like a brother to me, you know. Of course, we were so close. Anyway, he got to come home and went to OU and made a lawyer and practiced law in this Okema for a few years. And he ran for county judge and was elected, and ran for district judge, and he was elected. Yeah. Then he served, I don't know how many terms as district judge, and he finally retired. Then, make a long story short, he finally going blind, and he was losing his ability to walk too. So anytime I was over that way, I'd stop and go see him, you know. And he died then in May.
Let's get back to the 461st.
Okay.
Okay. Did you feel like it just became routine for you? You know, picking up the crews, taking them out, picking
up. Just a daily deal.
Yeah. What did you do in your downtime? What did you do while the planes were out?
Well, I'd just mess around there in camp, you know, and they didn't have really not too much to do. I'd maybe a group would want to go to town, and I'd take them to town, you know. And
any stories there?
In the Cerignola.
Any stories there?
Pardon me?
Taking guys into town?
Yeah.
Any stories there?
Well, not really that I can remember.
How about you going into town?
Well,
any stories there?
But yeah, I went to two what they call rest areas, you know, or we went to Rome one time for 3 days.
Okay.
Me and 4 boys.
Yeah.
One of the planes was going up that way, and we bummed a ride up there and got one back.
Yep.
Ride back, you know. We was in Rome for 3 days, and then another time, I went to Venice, Italy, and northern part of Italy, and that's where they have the gondolas, you know, everything's underwater, you know. Sure. And anytime you went anywhere, you got in on one of those little gondolas, and they'd take you, you know. Yeah. Was there for 3 days.
Were there a lot of military people there?
Pardon me?
A lot of military people, American military.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys were everywhere. I mean, you just uniforms.
And there was a lot in Rome. I can remember a lot of people being in Rome. And if you've never been to Rome, that's an interesting city. Yeah. Really is. It's so much to see, you know. And we got to go to the Vatican, and I forget what Pope was in. But we got to see him, and just in the window.
Sure, you know.
And we got to see him, and it was an interesting trip. Better than Venice, Italy. Venice is, you know, it's one of the older cities, I imagine, in the world, you know.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: during this period of time, the airplanes are going, they're coming back. Some of them come back, some of them don't come back. Was there any sense on your part that we were winning the war or losing the war? I mean, was there any sense of
I think, I can remember, you know, when we first went over there, we were real close to the front lines. Of course, we could see the flare of the guns of the night, you know, and then we could hear them all day, you know, and the night too, you know, before that goes. And but eventually it just kept working north and north and north, and we got out of it, you know. And
so what was your sense of what was going on? Do you think
scared to death?
Well, tell me why.
I was scared. Well, you never know when you're going to be bombed, you know, and which we would never was, you know. But Lord mercy, you know, you lay down in the night and you didn't know whether you wake up in the morning or not, you know. And of course, we didn't have it like the infantry, you know. Of course, we had it real good. We slept in a bed every night. And but you still, and young too, you know. Being young, you're scared, you know. But eventually got out of it. Of course, when we got through hearing the guns and all, you know. Then after the war worked on, they got it on out of Italy, back up into southern France, and on over into Germany and all through there, you know. And
well, what about you in terms of you said to me earlier you stayed in Italy. You never left Italy.
Never left Italy.
Okay.
Never left. Never got out of that. Never from that camp. One camp. Torretto-Cerignola. All the time I was there, I was right there.
Wow.
And
did the 461st, the bomber group, move from there at any time? Because they were
no,
so
there.
everything operated out of that
right
base.
There.
Out of that
they
base.
Were there. In that base right there.
Yeah. Where were you when victory in Europe was declared? VE Day.
Where was I at?
Well, yeah, when the Germans surrendered.
We were there.
Still okay. You're there.
Still at that base.
What was the reaction?
Oh Lord, everybody was happy.
Yeah.
You know, we knew we was gonna get to come home eventually.
Yeah.
And that was in June, I believe, when they surrendered. And of course, I got to come home on points. You know, you so long, you got collected points for being in service, you know, and getting there, different ways you collected points.
Sure.
Well, I got enough points to come home.
Oh.
And I believe I forget now, I think they trucked us to Naples.
Was this before victory over Japan? It was after victory in Europe.
That's before victory in Japan, because way on the ship coming home, this ship that we were on, big, it was a lot larger than a Liberty ship. And it was some of the infantry guys is all mixed up on there because on this ship, and some of the infantry guys was on there. They were scheduled to go on the Pacific. We wasn't. I was getting out. See, I had points, and me and a whole slew of boys had points, and but the war was over. In the meantime, in Pacific, on the way home. 11 days, we was on that ship 11 days, and it was over while we were on the ship coming home.
What was the reaction of the troops? Did you actually notice that they were...
Oh,
because they were supposed to go to Japan.
Yeah,
so what happened?
You never said they were happy. I'll guarantee you can't never. And they volunteered for everything. This guy that was sitting there with points on, they wouldn't let us do nothing. They wanted to do everything because they was happy that they wasn't going to have to go on the Pacific, or they was going to have to go to the United States, you know. And they were a happy bunch of boys, really happy. And we were 11 days coming home.
Where'd you land? Coming home. Before you talk about getting home, where'd you land?
Oh, we came into down the Hudson River there in New York City. Went right by the Statue of Liberty. Come on down and docked in the river, Hudson River.
Yeah.
And they came out and picked us up, and had a boatload of milk, cartons of milk. Of course, we hadn't had a carton of milk since when, you know, since we even left the station, went over there. And I forget what.
That's all right.
I can't remember the people that came out and met us, you know.
Oh, okay. It was like a welcoming committee kind of thing?
Oh yeah, it was a welcome
But-
committee, but
yeah.
they had a name. I can't think
Okay,
now.
all right.
And they came out and met us when we docked
Mhm.
out in the middle of the river,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And they came out and got us in the little boats, you know,
Wow,
and taking us
yeah.
ashore. And they had the milk for us, you know,
Yeah,
cartons of milk.
Yeah. So welcome home.
Welcome home.
Yeah.
And we docked when we got off. We went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and we were there 3 days. And they put us on every direction you were going. They put you on a train, and I went to Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. That's Fort Smith, and that's where I got out.
Okay. Let me backtrack just for a second. Coming down the harbor, you see the Statue of Liberty.
Oh,
What did
you
that
can't-
feel like?
That's just, you know, back then we was all kid young, you know, and happy, you know, we couldn't, and this welcome ship was going along beside of us. Of course, it wasn't just small, you know, and there's a plane going to take us on a journey. Yeah, and it was, you know, it made you feel good. Made you feel good.
Had you ever seen the Statue of Liberty before?
No, haven't been back either. I've been in New York City,
Yeah.
but not to get to see the Statue of Liberty.
That moment must have been great.
You go to mess hall, and you tell them what you want to eat. You know, it wasn't like when we went in. You know, you eat what's there or you don't eat. You know, and they cook you anything you want to eat. A steak, you know, at noon or evening, chicken or chops or ever what. You know, they treat you excellent.
Did your family know you were back?
I think, see, of course, my father had died.
Yeah.
And I think, and I called my mother from Fort Dix, you know,
Okay.
to tell her I was back.
Yeah.
And then I got to, I had a sister that lived in Shawnee, Oklahoma. That's right east of Oklahoma City, 30 miles. And I got on a bus at Camp Chaffee. I was there, just got separation papers, you know, and discharge papers and all. Just there a couple of days, and got on the bus and rode to Shawnee, and my sister and my first wife was there. They was there to meet me, you know. And
What was that like? What was that moment like?
happy.
Now you're in your uniform, right?
I was in uniform.
Oh boy!
Yeah,
You
I was
come
in
walking
uniform,
up,
and
you
I
handsome
hadn't-
young devil. Yeah.
Well, see, I
There's your girl, and
I hadn't been home in from well, I got a furlough in July when I was in Nebraska,
yeah.
and then that was
It's a long time.
2 years now.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
later.
How about your mom? What was her reaction? Seeing
Oh,
you?
she's real happy too, of course,
Yeah.
you know. And I was the baby,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah, she was real happy. I can remember that. Just happy woman.
Let me ask you this. Looking back on your military career, the time that you were in the service, how did that affect the person that you became?
Well, it grew you up. You know, you got grown. You know, you was a kid when you went in there, and you was in there nearly 3 years. Well, you was a man when you came out. You know, I mean, you wasn't a big man. You know what I mean? But you was grown up, and of course, you was glad to get out too. You know, you just couldn't wait to get out and get you a job. And I wasn't out a week, and I was working in the oil field. I was roughnecking on a drilling rig. I don't know if you know what a drilling rig is or not, but that's what I was. Started roughnecking. And
When you got back from the service, did you talk a lot about what you did in the service, or did that come much
no,
later?
not a lot. You know, you talk more than you do now. You know, you don't. It's much of it you've forgotten. You know, and you want to forget it too. You know, a lot of it you wanted to forget, a lot of it you didn't want to forget. And I never hardly think of it anymore. Never, very seldom. Like I was telling you a while ago, all the boys in my tent that I lived with so long, they've all died. And you get close to them. you know, you live with a bunch of boys for 20 months, 22, 23 months. You get pretty close to them, sleeping right there, you know. By the way, I was telling you, this tent, how it was fixed up. Well, you've heard this story, drink the beer, don't drink the water, you know. That's
Yeah.
the Mexican deal, that's the Mexican
Yeah.
talking. We had wine. We got cigarettes for 4 cents a package. We got, and 90%, 95% of the boys back then smoked, you know. And we got cartons of cigarettes, 40 cents a carton. And one of the boys in the tent, he gets to go in with the little girl, and her father had a farm down the road a little ways, and he made wine. And we give cognac and gin and stuff like that. And by the way, I'll tell you another story about, I take laundry into town, and this one place, it was a Catholic orphanage. They did laundry. They did our laundry. And I was, you know, 90% of the time I take their dirty. Well, then the NCO club and the officers club, well, they would restock their booze.